Howdy, folks. Welcome to Outside the Vault.
Hello.
My name is Multiverse Ben
No,
from
not you
the
again.
Universe 417.
Not
and
again.
today we're going to be talking about a little movie that's really, it's kind of a cult classic in my universe, but apparently it's huge in the universe that you guys are from. It's called Star Wars. Episode 1 through 9. Yeah, Star Wars. Woohoo. Star Wars for life.
Oh,
Star Wars
boy.
forever.
Where do we start? Where do we start?
Oh man, so I have with me two of the biggest Disney Star Wars fans, Zach Leewald and Samuel George. I'm just kidding. The biggest nerds that I know,
What?
because nerds watch Star Wars, and nerds try to get into medical school, and nerds try to become are carpenters.
Yes.
You know, so I guess. And then I like the more mainstream ones, so I guess that makes me not a nerd, right? Because
No, Star Wars is mainstream.
I'm
Maybe not in your universe.
Here, if that's what you want.
well, I'm back to regular universe 616 or whatever.
Oh, you transformed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
good.
I was like, that one came into me and then left.
Oh, good.
Like in.
I didn't like that one.
Oh, man.
I like regular Ben.
This is
that's
a callback to the last episode, so we're trying to make something out of this.
The 417 keeps coming back.
So, where do we start?
All right.
Episode 7 sucked. Episode 8 was terrible. And episode 9 was the worst movie I saw that year.
I'm sorry for your ears, audience. But well, let's start at the beginning. Let's start 1970s.
Should we start in the beginning or episode 4?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about.
So the middle.
First Star Wars movie was episode 4, which is not confusing at all. It's called A New Hope. It wasn't called A New Hope when it first came out, and it was directed by George Lucas, who is the founding father of Star Wars. He is the godfather of Star Wars. I'm sure he didn't make up all of the concepts eventually, but basically a lot of the main concepts of Star Wars are from his brain, right?
Yeah,
and then it sort
basically
of took flesh from there.
Well, he wrote books about them.
Yeah, he wrote books, and there was the Star Wars Holiday Special, which is of course the best thing that's ever happened to Star Wars.
I mean, kind of. Boba Fett came from it, so.
Yeah, it's true.
More or less.
And then we start out strong with Star Wars, which if you go back is like you can't appreciate it probably as much if you didn't live then, because like it was extremely revolutionary when it came out, and now we've seen tons of movies based on it.
Back then, Star Wars was so unique. I mean, if you look at other science fiction of that time, it just if it was stylized in that same way, it just wouldn't have held up the way it did.
And it didn't, because Dune came out in 1980 something, and it did horrible. So
Dune came out in 1986.
there was an older version of Dune that was made.
Okay.
And it was later than the first Star Wars, but it was
Timothy Chalamet was a fetus. He was in it.
David Lynch, my favorite guy. He directed it, and I think he disowned the movie after because he knew it was bad.
Oh.
But they tried to do they weren't able to capture what Star Wars did with like the practical effects and stuff, and I think it just looked really cheap and cheesy.
Really?
The Dune. Not Star Wars.
Dune. Okay.
Star Wars did exceptionally well with
Star
their
Wars
practical
was-
effects. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I give them all the credit in the world for
Fun
that.
fact: Chuck Norris was in Star Wars, like the original,
Really? What character?
The Force.
Boo.
All right. I'm pretty sure Ben from Universe 417 could have made a better joke than that one.
He's rolling in his grave.
I was going to try to make a Chuck Norris joke, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. I will say that did catch me unsuspecting, which is kind of sad, honestly, because
okay, Ben.
that joke set up as a classic.
Not everyone can be
Even
417.
Era, the laundry detergent Era, they made like they had Chuck Norris come on and like do stuff like even Chuck Norris can feel it or something, and he like twitches like the laundry detergent. Anyway,
That's great.
Anyway, we get to episode 5, right?
Yeah.
Which is the second one that came out.
Second one.
And it's probably the best one, right? What did you say?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's pretty good. One of the original writers of the script is from Kinsman, Ohio, which is where my parents went to high school.
I didn't know
How about that. Yeah, but that I don't. I don't know. I know that there's some connection there, but I won't go as far as to say it's the person who's credited with writing the thing, because I know there's a difference. There's people who write it and then it gets edited, and somebody has like the final like credit. But
Did this classmate?
there wasn't a classmate of that.
Well, did it make? Was that the person that made Leia and Luke not brother and sister anymore?
That would be so funny if that was the case. Yeah, is this the episode they kiss, right?
Yeah.
And
Sweet
so
Home Alabama plays in the background.
So, yeah, Star Wars is a normal sci-fi movie about incest and stuff like that. So,
Oh man.
That's how I say it to people. Space incest.
Sweet Home Alabama.
it's not real. It's not real. Well, they
Kind
didn't
of.
know though. They didn't know that they were.
Sure, that makes it so much
I
better.
know, it's gross. Oh my gosh.
It's like finding out your girlfriend's your sister.
Yeah, like. Oh, like I swear I've seen videos that people were like, we found out we were first cousins, like, but we're like dating now. Like, do we stop dating? It's like, I don't envy your life, and I'm pretty sure you're making it up because it's online. So.
All right, let's move on here now, shall we?
It stopped a little too long in that one plot
Yeah.
point.
No, but that's so weird that they made obviously George
People
Lucas.
just skip over it though. That's the thing. They do exactly
true,
what we're
yeah.
doing, and they're like, "Well, it's just Star Wars," and they give it a free pass, and they don't like really. They're like, "Why did they do this?"
I mean, there's already plenty of family drama in that movie.
yeah, he is like,
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. No, I am your father.
Oh, that's James Earl Jones. That's
Would you have to appreciate that Samuel said it the right way? Because like for the longest time you hear people say, "Luke, I am your father," but he does not say that. He says,
No, he does not.
No, I am your father. So important to keep track of. Episode 6, kind of a downer, kind of a
Significantly bad, especially considering
Ewoks,
Yeah, I
lovable
hate
creatures
Ewoks.
of the woods.
What?
Kill them all.
They're so cute.
My mom
Kill
wasn't
them all.
My mom wasn't a big Star Wars fan, but she liked Ewoks, so obviously they reached their target audience, I think.
They're a bunch
Ben's
of
mom.
furry midgets. Why? I'm sorry. Can you say midget on this?
We'll cut that out. I think furry little people. Okay, all right, moving on.
Oh man.
Oh man, off the rails.
Yeah.
So episode 6 was kind of disappointing, and so they closed it off for a period of time.
Ending battle's cool though. Like with Luke and Vader fighting.
Oh yeah, and then
That's
the
cool.
redemption, and I would say the overall story arc of 4, 5, and 6 very satisfying, classic. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
And
Also, going back to the Ewoks real quick, I guess that was originally supposed to be the Wookiees, which would have made it a lot better, in my opinion.
oh yeah, and they didn't
Because Wookiees are actually dangerous. I can see Wookiees be threatening.
because they didn't do that until episode 3, then,
But-
where they were on the
but they
Wookiee
basically put a bunch of teddy bears, like teddy bears with sticks, up against knockoff space Nazis with laser rifles.
Yeah, the Disney fight it
And
before
mechs.
they got owned by Disney, basically.
Yeah, basically, and
Yeah.
it just got stupid. Part of that's because I think the producer got changed. I don't remember how it happened, but the producer got like switched out or something.
That seems like it would happen. Creative differences, probably. That's usually
Yeah.
it.
Although that was originally George Lucas's plan to have some lesser race defeat the stormtroopers, but it was originally going to be the Wookiees, which would have made it much more interesting.
Yeah.
I would have liked that better.
That would have
Yeah.
been much better.
So
yes.
we fixed that movie. So moving into the 20th century, we get the fantastic, amazing, stellar Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
No, Misa stayed. Misa comic relief.
Which we see what happens if you give George Lucas complete control and reign over everything that I think that I've heard that he genuinely thought that Jar Jar Binks was like the funniest thing ever.
Which he wasn't.
And he wasn't, and it didn't really fit.
He ruined the show.
And really, if you think about it, this is the Star Wars that we always knew since we grew up with the prequels existing. But like the original Star Wars was not like this colorful lightsaber laser battle.
No, it wasn't. It had
Like-
grit to it.
Yeah. Whereas
grit
this
to it.
became like they discovered CGI, and instead of doing something like The Matrix where you use it, which still The Matrix has some scenes that are kind of like not that good comparatively to what we have today, but they went too far with the CGI, and it looked like Avatar when it first came out, but that aged like milk. And
yeah,
so
it did.
and then you realize that the plot was also weak. So, and the same thing happened in episode 2. Episode 3 is the one that a lot of people kind of are like.
Darth Maul was cool though.
Darth Maul was cool.
Darth Maul was cool. Qui-Gon Jinn was also really cool. It was neat seeing the torch being passed to Obi-Wan.
And
there are good things I could say about it, but definitely
Padme falling in love with a kid who's like 9. Which
that's
is
kind of weird.
Again, another weird like.
I'm debating on whether or not to make a joke about that.
But I guess they didn't fall in love until the next episode where they're like adults, so it's fine. But it's just weird how Star Wars always has these like weird things that you just are like, well, that's Star Wars.
Also, fun fact, I guess the guy behind Jar Jar, the guy who played him, got so much verbal abuse that he nearly committed suicide.
I saw that. Yeah,
That's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, that is horrible, but that doesn't change the fact that the character was just bad.
Well, I mean, it's not his fault that the character is bad, which is why it's bad that people directed all the hate towards him, because George Lucas is the one who it was his fault, because this guy's just doing his job,
Yeah.
I'm sure he played it out exactly how George Lucas wanted it. It's just it was
that
not
guy's
good.
life was ruined before it got started. He was younger. So.
Yeah, basically.
He's like the kid on the Nirvana album.
I don't know who played him. I don't know who played Jar Jar at all.
No.
I don't think he's played in any other movies
Probably not the.
after the suicide.
And that's the thing. You assume that if you're in a big movie, that it's like you just go on to do some. But sometimes things happen, and it's like then your whole career is ruined.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, basically.
And it's not your fault. Like I said, it's like he was doing his job. He played, but he gets the blame and
yeah, I mean, he wasn't the one that wrote the script.
yeah, or even directed,
designed the
or even
character.
directed how you were supposed to, how the character was supposed to talk, or the things that people didn't like about him, and that's all.
Yeah, he didn't come up with that. He doesn't. I don't think he talks around adding an SA to every me and you and I or whatever. So.
Yeah. So at any rate, that is where we came to when we got to Disney Star Wars, which I don't know. People probably didn't think that they were going to make more Star Wars movies. They made the Clone Wars, right? And
No, Disney didn't make the Clone Wars.
No, somebody else made the Clone Wars.
There was a reason the Clone Wars was good.
But that's what I'm saying. People like it, and some people even say it's the best thing Star Wars has ever done.
Clone Wars?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the best thing ever done, but
It's really good.
I haven't watched it, so I can't say, and that makes me a fake Star Wars fan. But I don't think it's probably the best thing they've... Well, it might be the best thing they've ever done, but I just can't say for sure.
This is all Lucas's fault though, because if he had kept what was basically his, creation to himself, this would have never existed.
But the money,
money isn't everything.
Money talks. Is all I'm saying.
I could probably create more money as a doctor, but I chose to be a carpenter because I enjoyed that line of work.
Yeah.
So it's just, and George Lucas himself regrets making the decision. He's made that very clear.
Yeah.
He regrets doing this. And I can fully understand, because they ruined his golden child.
An argument can be made though that if he had passed,
You mean passed away?
If he passed away, that pretty soon after Disney would have bought it anyway. So
fair enough.
It's kind of hard to tell. Now you don't know that for sure, but now it's like more on his plate that it happened. If people don't like that it happened, because what happens is like the same thing that happened with Marvel, which Marvel was already going this direction anyway. But Disney is a cash cow, and they will do things to make money. And the thing is, the fans really, it's kind of the fans' fault if they keep making stuff, because that means that they're selling enough of it that people are watching it and that it's making money. So it's kind of a complex thing to Disney is a company that wants to make money. That is their goal. So they'll do whatever it takes to do that.
I should have noticed this from the start, but just unpopular opinion, because I know there's a bunch of people that will hate me for saying this. Disney is by far the worst movie company to have ever existed. They cannot... there are some movies they've made that are good, like the old Davy Crockett movie and like the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
That's funny that's the one you pick out, like the Davy Crockett movie. Like I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean,
did I just?
I see what. I see what you're coming from. That like Disney may be a bit like overrated in terms of like there's been a lot of periods of times where Disney has made not good movies.
Do not like animated musicals or just musicals in general.
But like, you know, some of the stuff's kind of good. But you're right. And a lot of things that they've made recently that have been good, they bought from other, so it wasn't like their original concepts.
Like The Mandalorian, for instance, which as much as I hate Disney's grasp on Star Wars, I will admit The Mandalorian's good.
But of course, they did own Star Wars, I guess, as intellectual property, so they could be responsible. But Jon Favreau can just resurrect anything.
Yeah,
so.
And Mandalorian was good. And part of the reason it was good was because it ignored the Force. But I'll get it, or at least they didn't really mess with the Force that much outside of canon. But I don't know if you...
So is that your... So as we get to episode 7, 8, and 9, which came out recently, and 7 is like basically a knockoff of... a ripoff of 4,
it's the Chinese discount version of 4.
Yeah, or the better version of 4, depending on who you ask. And then Star Wars Episode 8 is the magnum opus, just incredibly daring art house like version of Star Wars that Rian Johnson invented in his brilliant
bold statement
and beautiful
to make
mind.
when there's 2 people in this room that absolutely despise that movie.
And then Episode 9 was kind of just a waste of
worst
time.
movie of that year, in my opinion. It was just
there's probably
trash.
a worse movie. I bet you could find a worse movie, but I get what you're saying. It wasn't very good. I was pretty disappointed by it.
Yeah.
And the storyline, which they did go back to, it was funny when they first were saying they were going to make new movies. For some reason, I thought of the plot line of Darth Sidious coming back, and because I read about that in one of those like big encyclopedias about Star Wars.
He could technically come back, and they could have done it properly because. Well, this is the stupid thing about this, okay? Books about what happened after Return of the Jedi exist, and the stories were much better. You could have turned those into movies, and you would have made money from both sides.
Because most people...
Both people who wanted to see something new and people that wanted to keep to the script. No one would have been mad if they had stuck to the books.
True, that's what Marvel does.
Yeah.
Marvel goes with their... I mean... They take creative liberties, but they always base everything off of a comic that exists.
No one would have been mad about that. What they did, what Disney ended up doing, was creating a whole new entity and basing it completely off of the Empire. And they learned nothing new from the Empire. From all of the Empire's terrible mistakes, like, say... leaving the Death Star to take out the capital ships when you have giant space Doritos and you can use them because they have turbo laser cannons, but you don't use them because you have so much hubris that because of the Death Star you just built. You'd think they would have learned from this, but no, they don't learn that starfighters kill capital ships very quickly. You'd think they would know this, but they don't. They learn nothing.
So the books don't have the same type of Death Star that they make?
Well, the books take it more from a perspective of the Empire is slowly getting weeded out, and then a new threat appears in one of the series of books called like the Yuzan Vong or something, and they're just like aliens from a completely different
Wasn't there like
galaxy.
a guy who was like blue? Like
blue?
Like he was like a blue alien.
That's
like,
a lot of people in Star Wars.
Okay.
You would have to narrow it down way further than that.
I'll have to narrow it down. There's
That's
definitely a guy that I know of being a villain. In
you mean
Cad
Admiral
Bane?
Thrawn?
Yes.
Cad
That's
Bane?
I was thinking that Admiral Thrawn is actually takes place during what is established as canon 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because he's in Star Wars Rebels.
I get my like fake, not fake. The like canon that's outside of the movies. I get it like mixed up in terms of when it happened. Because there's of course like the Old Republic, and there's like the in between 3 and 4, and then there's the stuff that was happening during 4, 5, and 6 that we didn't see.
Yeah.
And then there's the Clone Wars, and there's the stuff after, and then there's the new stuff after, and it's just incredibly complicated because they didn't. I mean, this is the biggest problem that Disney did is for spending all of this money. How did they not assemble a team to decide what they were gonna do and make it consistent across 3 movies, and just you make the 3 movies and then you release them, bang, bang, bang.
Well, this is
1, 2, 3, right, one after another. You don't make the first one and then be like, okay, we'll see how that does, and then we'll see what we're gonna do from there. That's dumb. Like, why? Like, just make something, get it out, and then people will determine how they like the consistent. It could be consistently bad, but at least it's consistent, and not inconsistently good and bad, depending on who you are.
This is why. This is why, and this is from me having watched other Disney films at the expense of my brain cells. Disney has realized that their name has created so much money that it's literally like buying a Lexus these days. You buy it because of the L logo. It's at this point they've realized that they don't even need to try. Because so many people remember, those happy memories of watching that one really bad animated musical that I don't remember, and it was just bad because there was nothing good about it. There's so many people have those memories, and if anyone listening is one of those people, I'm sorry, I just don't like those. It's an opinion. People have them. People remember those movies, which I can understand. People remember different
They're
things.
nostalgic. People are nostalgic.
Yeah, people are nostalgic. So they'll take their kids to see these movies that they supposedly grew up from this company that they grew up with. And in doing so, that's how Disney is able to make so much profit, because they've realized at this point they have so much money and so much name that they don't even need to try.
Yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from, because this says a lot about society, American society, is we're consumeristic to the point that like we're so brand loyal in America. Like everything is about brand. Like politics is about brand. Twitter, like social media is about brand. Like we reduce everything to brand. Like this podcast is about brand. We just haven't built it up to be a big enough brand. But if it was, it'd be like, if the movie got big, then we could stop being good and people would still listen. That's how it works. Like people, like you have to, like in order to be successful in podcasting, realistically, for most people, you have to already have a pre-established brand before people will be willing to listen to you. It's because we have such a variety of options that people are like, okay, what is a way that I can make a decision? Yeah. Well, one of the ways is by saying, I like this company, what some of this company's done, like through whatever. So they like some of the movies they made in the past. So now I'm going to judge movies they made 30, 40 years later on the same merit, even though they're completely different people in the company. It's not the same thing. Yeah. And so they take that and they decide, like you were saying, they decide, take their kids and stuff to the movie based on that. It's like people will say, I'm going to watch Netflix. And they'll watch like what's on Netflix, which is like Netflix originals. It's like they could watch stuff on Hulu or HBO or anything, but they have to make a decision. So everything's about brand.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. So and Disney is on top, kind of in that regard. Like they own a lot of big.
Yes,
things at this point.
That's another strategy they've taken, is they bought assets and they forced those assets to success, to add to their own pool of money. They bought Star Wars, for example, which was already a major money dump. There's lots of people who love Star Wars, me included. And sometimes I bought a $300 lightsaber as a kid. I mowed lawns for years.
Aww.
And I bought this almost $400 lightsaber. That's how much of a Star Wars fan I was.
Was it too big for you?
No, actually, I was 13.
Oh, okay, sorry. So, I was picturing like a 4-year-old Samuel.
No, I couldn't even mow lawns at that age.
I don't know.
yeah, but sometimes people don't. I've realized this with fans, is that you sometimes don't know what's good for you. Like as a Star Wars fan, it was like natural to be like, of course I want more Star Wars movies. But you realize that this happens with so many movie series. Yeah. They have something that's so good, and then they just can't help themselves. They have to reach back into the cookie jar, and then it sort of leaves a bad taste in people's mouth about it after. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's what's happened with all these sequels. It's like, from a business standpoint, it is safer to try to make a sequel of an already successful movie than it is to come up with something original.
And that
could also, original concepts are like not necessarily always the best thing either, because they might just be like ripping off something that has already happened. So it might not be original completely as much as they're just renaming things.
And that perfectly describes 15-year-old me. I loved Star Wars a lot. I have a giant Star Wars encyclopedia. I have, Darth Vader costume. I had all this stuff that I still have, and I don't really want to get rid of. But I just was like, oh, there's more Star Wars movies coming out. This is cool. I get to see more of the Force and more lightsaber fights and
more Kylo Ren. You didn't even know you wanted him.
Actually, the funny thing you mentioned that, because Kylo Ren was literally the only interesting character in the films.
That's true. He was
in the new trilogy. I mean, yes, he's a Darth Vader ripoff. Nothing can compare to the character that is.
Darth Vader. I disagree, because Darth Vader is not a character as much as he is like a figure. Because they don't really explore Darth Vader's character, and then they do give him a redemption arc, which gives him a little bit more. But he's just supposed to be an intimidating figure, which is why he's so great. It is why he's great. And then they do in the prequel trilogies, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So,
well, the other thing is nothing like Darth Vader had been seen before.
That's true.
He was completely new. I mean, in that scene, you're already seeing this giant, massive space Dorito, which is called an Imperial 2 class Star Destroyer, just to clarify, chasing the Tantive.
This is not Spaceballs. We're not talking about Spaceballs right now.
Yeah, chasing the Tantive 4, and it docks, and then you see these guys in white armor walking out with these guns, and they're shooting at these guys that look like they're having a harder time. And then the smoke clears, and this black figure in this cape with this skull-looking helmet walks on the stage, and making this
what the heck?
noise, and it's just,
how do you do that? How do you?
I know.
It should be a voice animator. That'd be good.
A voice animator
or whatever
voice actor.
Some consider to be unnatural.
Yeah, I think what we've learned, if anything, from these past 2 episodes is that Sam is actually a pretty gifted voice actor. So
yeah,
thank you.
You might want to try out for some parts at some point. We can't get you connected to anyone because we don't know anybody, but just throwing that out there.
Well, so yeah, nothing like Darth Vader had been seen.
You're right. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct about that. A lot of this is me just being taking my personal preference and running with what I want versus what everyone wants, which is kind of the challenge that they're facing, is that they're trying to please so many people.
Yeah.
They really should have just gone for trying to please the core of the fans, because everyone else kind of doesn't care that much, right?
Yeah.
They'll just go watch the movie because it's Star Wars. But the core fans are the people who really matter, and they kind of abandoned them at some point.
They did, and the stupid thing is Disney could afford it. Because they have billions of dollars. They have so much money that they can afford doing this.
Well, on the other hand, you could say if they never took any risks, though, it would just feel kind of what is the point of doing this?
That's the thing. Disney doesn't take risks.
So they took a risk with Episode 8.
Well, yeah. I mean, good point there. Good point.
That's
if
why
there was anything good about Episode 8, it was that they tried to be original.
Yeah. Which it was bad because they could have been original within the rules, because it was a lot of it seemed like a lot of people were complaining about what they were doing with some of the things with the Force and so forth. And
that was a huge thing with it, though.
And then there was some side quests, like I mentioned earlier, that were just pointless and didn't really add to the story at all.
Well, that was a big problem with what Disney was doing, is because they seem to see the Force. This is funny because Disney does a lot with magic, which is their deus ex machina for basically everything. The Force isn't magic, okay? It's not. It's completely different. It has limits. It has limits to what it can do.
No, other people just weren't powerful enough.
You can't just pull random powers out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're right. They build up this rules for this thing, and then they just broke them without explaining how they broke them, or giving logic.
Yeah,
or saying, oh, actually this could be explained.
For example, Force healing. As far as I'm concerned, there has been no one that has ever been able to do that. There's a reason Jedi die. There's a reason the Jedi were killed off so quickly in Order 66, because that power never existed.
But what if There's Rey, the one who has the power for
Yeah,
Force.
I highly...
What if she's so powerful, so gifted with the Force that she is...
I highly doubt that, first off, someone that isn't related to the Skywalker bloodline, and second, someone that is basically just a complete trainee, a complete rookie, would ever be
don't
able
we
to
find out
that.
later that she's Palpatine's
Yes.
granddaughter? But
that's part of the thing about the Force is it requires training to harness. She had none.
But that's the thing.
Neither
She's
did Leia.
so powerful.
Neither did Leia. What do you mean?
Yeah, but she forced herself back on the ship.
Yeah, that was stupid too.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
that was
think
the
I
dumb
agree
scene.
with
That
it?
was the dumb scene.
Yeah.
I hate it. I didn't like that. That was I erased it from my mind
Especially as
because
someone
the
that
whole
doesn't like
Mary
Mary
Poppins scene, and this what's the actress's name? Carrie Fisher. She tragically passed away before the movie released, and they had a good way to give her a good solid ending
they
in
could
the
have
Star
given her
Wars
a
universe,
send-off.
and a good send off that was she did something heroic and
They could have had a memorial service at the end.
Yeah,
which Han deserved, by the way, and he didn't get it.
and so and instead they used this other character who was randomly in the movie, and then they randomly kill her off just like that. And
Which random character?
the one with the purple hair. I forget what the actress is who
Say
plays
she's
her.
forgettable.
But they
spend 20 minutes
I
of
don't
the
remember
movie.
anyone with purple hair.
There was, I swear.
She was the one that drove the ship into the bigger ship.
Oh, that person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I don't even know her name.
And that yeah.
See, we don't remember her, but she was 20 minutes of the movie.
Well,
yeah. And instead of having Leia be in her place, they made Leia do the whole Mary Poppins thing and float across, and then. But I'm just playing devil's advocate and saying that it's possible that Rey is just this, has such, she's untrained, but her, ability to use the Force, or I don't know how, this might not be accurate to how the Force is, but we know that Luke was extremely talented in terms of the Force, and of course they go into it in a stupid way in the prequel trilogies when they start talking about midichlorians and Anakin's being the chosen one because there's these things in their cells and it gets way too scientific for its own good. Because it makes the Force not a mystic thing anymore.
Well, I don't think the concept of midichlorian is completely off, but I mean, fair enough.
Sometimes you can over-explain things in sci-fi because it doesn't make sense, and then when you start trying to make it make sense, then you just make it less believable and more why are we even... Marvel does this sometimes too. They try to over-explain things.
But that's one of the biggest issues with that is that, with the Force, or at least traditionally with the Force, because I don't know, I heard something about Disney trying to erase this absolute dumpster fire that they created, but I don't know for certain. I only heard some rumors about that. But anyways, traditionally, the Force isn't something that you just happen to know how to use.
Right.
Traditionally, you have to be trained to know how to do it.
Even though Anakin is so gifted with the Force, he still has to be trained.
This is how stupid it got. Sorry about the keys. This is how stupid it got. Remember that scene in Episode 5 where Luke is standing on his head, lifting rocks in the air? You know what I'm talking about? So they have this scene in Episode 9 where Rey is doing the Buddhist Om pose, and there's rocks rotating around her. Luke wasn't able to do that with no training. Luke needed training to do that.
That's a good point.
Training from a master, mind you. A master.
The greatest, the most, arguably the most gifted of the masters. He was on the Jedi High Council as the highest.
Backflip I do. Responsible for war crimes I am.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap this puppy up. But basically, in summary, though, this episode, Samuel has made the claim that Disney is the worst movie company to ever exist. I made the claim that Episode 8 is a respectable movie, and Zach has sat here just in awe of Samuel's voice acting ability.
It's pretty good, actually.
Time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so this has been Outside the Vault, and now Zach and I are going to hop back into the vault.
Hop, 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 hop.
And I am
not
I am Ben from Universe 1607.
I'm sick of these guys.
We just pop up all the time
in
his head. This is In my universe, this is the funniest bit, and everyone loves it, and they laugh at it so hard.
Am I on camera in your other one?
Yeah, and other people are saying that Zach in Universe 616 an idiot. He doesn't even get how funny this joke is.
All right.
So I'm gonna hop back in the vault
As a
now.
resident of Universe 69420, I can concur this.
Oh, that's good. See, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. All right, now opening the vault, closing the vault.